Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video, as you can probably tell, is on a case knife. And if you follow my channel, you know I don't do a whole lot of videos on case knives. And that's kind of just because they often have issues and they haven't really been coming out with a lot of things that particularly interested me. But recently they announced that the Barlow pattern, which you can see right here, Barlow 62, is coming back into regular production. So they did it as one of their vault patterns a little while back. I got some of those, didn't keep any just because, you know, most of them had issues that I got and things like that. But I love Barlows, and I was excited to see that they are bringing the Barlow back into regular production. It's not, you know, a vault pattern or something like that. They will be making it regularly. Now, not a lot of them have come out. I know some of them have come out, but this one was a special one, as you can see, that you could purchase directly from Case here. And so it is in their burnt amber bone, which is intended to look more like some of their older, but it's in a spear and pen. Talk a little bit more about that later. It's stainless steel. People know about their stainless steel. It's not great. Tends to be a little bit soft and mushy when you use more info. No shield, which that's one of the big problems with Case Barlows for me, is that they often have a shield. Not only do they have a shield, but they're glued and not pinned shields. Case does not pin their shields generally, so a Barlow shouldn't really have a shield unless it's a granddaddy Barlow, a larger Barlow. But they put shields on Barlows and then don't pin them, they just glue them. So kind of like a double negative there, but it makes more of a negative, not a positive. And really even for GEC at this point. So that's one of the things that drew me to it, you know, maybe more of an actual collector's knife. But let's actually get into the knife. I'm sure people will have comments about how long it takes me to actually show the knife in this video, but it comes in this box. You can see this here. Again, I got this from Case, and it was about $138 shipped. You can see it has the serial number on the box and stuff, so you can match it up. But it is a nice looking box. I like the kind of, I don't know, typography, if you want to call it that, of this font and such. And then within the box, there is a velvet case box thing. It is nice, but velvet just takes, you know, dust and dirt so easily. I haven't carried or used this knife at all. And it does, you know, it's a nice looking case. You can put it in this little elastic thing here and display it if you wanted to in this case. I think it would look nice that way. And being that it is, I think, intended mostly as a collector knife, you know, it's nice to have the option to display it with something that came with it. So instead of having to buy a separate display. Which is the case for, you know, most Case and GEC knives. So here is the knife. And first off, I do like this bone. I think that this bone is really nice looking. I want to give you a good close look at this bone here. It does look kind of old-timey. Now these big areas here are not necessarily like the really old Case bone and bone in general, the way it was jigged, but those smaller jiggings inside there do remind me of that. The color, I think, is pretty nice looking. It is kind of vintage looking. The fact that it has some light areas and some dark areas, particularly this area here where it's a really nice amber color. I like that a lot. It has it on this side also, less so in these jiggings. It's a little bit darker in there, but overall I think that the bone is really nice looking and pretty well done. You know, it's smoothly finished and all of that. Case certainly does a good job of smoothing things out on their knives. That's one thing people criticize, is that they're very like over polished looking sometimes. Now, I mentioned that this is a spear and pen bladed knife. I don't prefer that on a Barlow. I generally prefer a single bladed Barlow. I just think that, you know, most of the time you only need one blade, and one blade is enough. But I do like spear blades. I think that a spear blade is a really classic Barlow blade shape. I also like clip points and sheep feet blades and things like that. But a spear point is a really classic. It's a pretty normal spear point, I would call this. Not particularly pointy, not particularly bulbous, just kind of right in the middle, and not super interesting, to be completely honest. I think that they could have made a little bit more of a unique blade shape, but it is what it is. Now, I don't prefer a two-bladed knife. I just don't have a whole lot of use for a pen blade, particularly where it's like you know, it's almost the size of the full blade, so you might as well have made it just a full blade in my opinion. But, you know, there's the pen blade, pretty normal pen blade. I do prefer single blade, but if there is going to be a pen blade, I do prefer that it is in the back, that it's in the pile side rather than the show side or the mark side. So I do, you know, appreciate that. Often when the pen blade is on the show side, it makes it difficult to access the nail nick of the main blade, which certainly you don't want to have happening. As for the construction of the knife, well, let me talk about this. I do like this etching. This is not a stamp like on a TC Barlow. It is I believe, a laser etch. So you can see those lines in there. And I also do like the kind of the same etch on the blade. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but you can see the serialization. So 46 of 175. I do like that. It is kind of low key. It's not super billboardy like a lot of cases etches. They do their prototype etches and all kinds of different really big kind of garish etches, but I like garish knives, but not really big, you know, etches that say prototype and stuff like that. I do like the look of this here for the serialization. You get to see it on the show side, but it's not, you know, taking over the whole knife. Now, all that said, the look of it being pretty good, you know, not necessarily the greatest, the spear point blade shape out there, but the look in general being good. Unfortunately, the construction is not great. So first off, there is blade play on this main blade. It's very easy to feel it. It like actually moves back and forth. Hopefully, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but hopefully you'll be able to see it. I think you probably can see it there moving back and forth. Actually, you know, moving back and forth within the two liners there. So that's not great. The action is pretty good. I would say that the action, there's nothing wrong with the action. But on the pen blade, it, you know, is a little stronger pull. It's not too strong, but it's just always kind of strange to me when the secondary has a stronger pull than the main blade. Not really an issue there, just something that's strange. Now, there isn't any play on the secondary, but the other thing that this knife has is gaps between the bolsters and the covers. Now, I will say that this is something, gaps between the bolsters and covers is something that I've been seeing a lot on GEC knives recently. I don't know that it's something that is new to them, but maybe just having more of it recently. So, you know, it's not unheard of among traditional knives, and certainly I've had, you know, Cooper cutlery knives that had that. I haven't had any recent Cooper cutlery knives in general, so it'd be interesting to compare it to that, but it does have those gaps. And, you know, the combination of those gaps and the blade play and the fact that it's not an ideal blade configuration for me, and the fact that it was $138, which is significantly more than their normal Barlows, I do think I'm going to return this. Now, it's not that I don't plan to have a case Barlow in my collection or in my rotation. When they come out with a single-bladed Barlow without a shield, it's almost for sure that I will buy one. You know, I want to have a case Barlow just because it's so classic. It's just that I don't really want to have one that isn't ideal and has issues. So I plan to send this back, and then, you know, when they again come out with a single-bladed Barlow with no shield, I will give one a shot, hopefully not have any blade play or big gaps. But, oh, and I wanted to mention also, this is almost like a given with case in my experience, but the edge is abysmal. And the truth is that has been the case for GEC knives and, again, Cooper cutlery knives for me also. GEC blade edges tend to get way, way, way more obtuse towards the tip, to the point that it takes a lot of effort and time to reprofile the secondary bevels. Really not a fan of that, and it's a little different on cases. They, you know, this edge isn't super uneven or anything like that. It doesn't get too much more obtuse. It's just shocking how rough they can sharpen these. I mean, like, literally, it's as if it is a serrated blade. The edge is so rough, so toothy. Now, if that was the only thing with the edge, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. I actually don't mind a toothy edge. I think it, probably makes it cut pretty aggressively. So no real issue with a toothy edge. The problem is that this has a massive burr. So you can, for sure, I would think, hear that. As compared to the other side here, it just goes right off because there's a real big burr on this side of the edge. You might even be able to see it in certain points. I'm not sure, but it's just, it's one of those things where the knife, a knife is made to cut. It should come with a good edge. And that's, I'm not just saying that about Case. It's the truth for all these companies. They should come with good edges. So, that's another unfortunate thing about this. But I will give these new Case Barlows another shot. Get one once they come out with a single-bladed, no shielded version, and hope for a reasonable edge and no blade play and no big gaps. But it was interesting to get to check this out because, like I say, I have not bought a Case knife in a good while. And, it kind of confirms what I have thought about Case knives. So, I'm sure this will ruffle some feathers and some people will agree. But either way, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Leave any comments below. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.